Folks, buckle up, because today we're diving headfirst into a topic that might make your eyes glaze over at first. But trust me, stick with us.
Yeah.
We're talking about U.S. national debt. And this isn't about a few loose dollars here and there.
I don't know, not at all.
This is about a number so big it's hard to even wrap your head around.
Exactly.
$35.7 trillion.
It's a staggering figure.
I mean, try to picture that for a second. That's
That's
like
right.
if every single person in America, every man, woman, and child, suddenly owed over $105,000.
Each.
Like some kind of crazy nationwide credit card bill, right?
That's a pretty powerful way to visualize it.
And here's the thing. Just in the past 2 weeks, that number has shot up by another $500 billion.
It's a moving target, constantly growing.
So yeah, it's easy to see these numbers and just be like, whoa, those are big numbers. But, kind of tune it out.
Right.
But the thing is, the national debt, it's not just some abstract concept.
It's not.
It's a living, breathing thing, and it has a real impact on all of our lives every single day.
Absolutely. From the interest rates you get on loans to the prices you see at the grocery store, the national debt is a force shaping our economic landscape.
That's right. And today, to really get a grip on this beast, we're going to be using this really insightful article from NYCPE Insights.
A great resource.
Yeah, it's a great resource. It really lays it all out. And
Yeah.
our mission today is to, cut through all the jargon and the noise and really extract the most essential information, the stuff that matters, the stuff that, you and I need to know.
Exactly. The goal is to make this complex issue understandable and relatable so you can see how it impacts your life.
Exactly. So let's jump right in. All right. First things first, we got to talk about the sheer scale of this debt, right? It's not just big. It's growing at an alarming rate.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just a gentle slope upwards. It's more like we're on a financial roller coaster.
A very steep roller coaster. We're talking about an increase of almost $9 trillion in just the past 4 years. That's more than double what the debt was back in 2015.
So it's like the debt has been hitting the gym,
Yeah.
Big time.
Definitely bulking up.
Okay, so we get it. The debt is massive and it's growing fast. But what does this actually mean for me personally? Like, should I be worried? Should I be, stocking up on canned goods?
Well, maybe not canned goods just yet, but it's crucial to understand the ripple effects of this debt. For example, think about buying a house or a car.
Sure.
A large national debt can actually push those interest rates up, making those loans more expensive.
Oh, so it's like a hidden tax we all end up paying.
In a way, yes. Even Brian Moynihan, the CEO of Bank of America, is saying the U.S. needs to balance its books. Just like a household budget, if you keep spending way beyond your means, eventually those bills catch up to you.
Right. So, okay, no one is saying that this is, a good thing. But is there anyone to blame for this? Is this like a political football we can just punt back and forth between parties?
Well, that's where things get a little tricky. The article actually points out that both sides of the aisle have contributed to this situation. During the Trump administration, we saw significant spending with things like the COVID relief packages, right?
Right.
And then under the Biden administration, spending continued to increase, especially with the American Rescue Plan.
So it's not just one party or the other.
It's more like both teams have been adding weight to the same side of the seesaw, and now it's really out of balance.
Oh, that's a good analogy. And here's the part that really freaks me out, all right? The article suggests that future candidates, no matter what party they belong to, they're likely to propose even more spending.
It's a trend we're seeing across the board. It seems like no one wants to be the bad guy who says, hey, maybe we should tighten our belts a little.
Yeah, nobody wants to be the party pooper.
Exactly. But all this borrowing, it comes at a cost. And that cost is interest. This year alone, we're looking at over $1 trillion.
$1 trillion.
In interest payments. That's a 30% jump from last year.
So not only is the debt itself massive, but just paying the interest on that debt is costing us a fortune.
It's a significant portion of the federal budget, right up there with Social Security and Medicare.
Wow, it's like we're stuck in this never-ending cycle of owing more and more money.
Exactly. Imagine trying to pay off your credit card, but the minimum payment just keeps going up every month. That's essentially what's happening with the national debt. And this brings us to a really crucial concept, the debt-to-GDP ratio.
Okay, debt-to-GDP ratio. That sounds a little bit intimidating, like something I'd need a PhD in economics to understand.
It might sound technical, but it's actually pretty simple. Think of it this way. Imagine your personal income, the money you earn. That's like the GDP. And your debt, your mortgage, your student loans, whatever you owe, that's like the national debt. The debt to GDP ratio is basically comparing those two things. How much you owe compared to how much you earn. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And if your debt is way higher than your income, well, that's a red flag.
Right,
Yeah.
out cause for concern.
So what's the red flag situation looking like for the U.S. right now? What's our debt to GDP ratio?
Well, the Congressional Budget Office, they're predicting that it could hit a staggering 166% by 2054.
166%. That's almost twice as much as the entire country produces in a year. No wonder everyone's kind of freaking out.
This is a serious issue.
So what does that actually mean for, regular people like me? Like, what are the real-world consequences of a high debt to GDP ratio?
Well, for starters, it makes it harder for the government to borrow money, which drives up interest rates. On everything. Mortgages, business loans, you name it.
So that dream home I'm saving up for?
Could get even pricier.
Ouch. So my wallet feels it directly.
It's not just personal finances, though. A high debt to GDP ratio also means less money available for essential programs and services. Education, infrastructure, healthcare, everything suffers.
So it's not just about me and my mortgage. It's about our ability to, invest in things that benefit everybody.
Absolutely. When a huge chunk of the budget is going towards just paying off interest on the debt, there's less left over to invest in our future.
Yeah, that's scary. And to make things even worse, the average GDP for fiscal year 2024, it was actually less than the total debt.
Which means our debt to GDP ratio for this year is already at 124%. So we're already exceeding that 100% mark.
Wow, that's not good. So basically, a high debt to GDP ratio creates this ripple effect that, that touches almost every aspect of our lives.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so it's no wonder experts are sounding the alarm.
Right. Janet Yellen, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, she's warned that if we don't address the debt ceiling, it could really damage the U.S. economy and even destabilize the global financial system.
Okay, so this is not just some theoretical problem. This has real-world consequences.
Yeah.
But, we've also got other experts like Roger W. Ferguson. He's the former vice chair of the Federal Reserve, and he's saying that the debt ceiling, it's outdated.
He believes it needs to be completely overhauled. He argues that it creates unnecessary political drama and doesn't offer a real solution for managing the debt.
So we've got one expert saying we're playing with fire and another saying we need to change the rules of the game completely. Like, there's no easy consensus here.
Exactly. And then you have Christopher M. Tuttle at the Council on Foreign Relations. He's warning that without some major reforms, the U.S. is headed towards, and I quote, unsustainable debt levels.
Unsustainable debt levels. That sounds ominous. But what does that even look like? What kind of reforms are we talking about?
Well, the article outlines some potential paths forward. But keep in mind, there are no quick fixes here. Each approach comes with its own complexities and trade-offs.
Okay, so no magic wand solutions. So what are some of the ideas being thrown around?
One idea is to revamp or even completely eliminate the debt ceiling. That could help prevent those political showdowns that happen every time we reach the debt limit, where the government basically gets held hostage by partisan politics.
Yeah, those are always stressful.
Another option is targeted spending cuts. So basically identifying areas where the government can trim the fat without cutting essential programs, making sure every dollar is being used effectively.
Makes sense in theory, but, spending cuts are never popular.
True. Then there's tax reform, which often comes up. This could involve things like broadening the tax base, closing loopholes for wealthy individuals and corporations, making sure everyone's paying their fair share.
Tax reforms always spark a lot of debate, but it's definitely part of the conversation. What about the Federal Reserve? Don't they have a role to play in this whole debt situation?
Absolutely. The article really emphasizes the importance of careful interest rate management by the Federal Reserve. It's a delicate balancing act. They have to keep inflation in check, but also support economic growth.
Sounds like a tough job.
It is. One wrong move and the whole economy could take a hit. But there are also more proactive strategies being considered, like investing in areas that could boost revenue and economic growth in the long run. Things like renewable energy, infrastructure improvements, or supporting new technologies.
So instead of just cutting back, we could also be building up and creating a more robust economy. That sounds promising. What about the global picture? Can we really tackle this problem alone?
We live in a very interconnected world. Global cooperation is key. The article highlights the need to work with other countries to address issues like inflation, geopolitical tensions, supply chain problems, all of these things, creating a more stable economic environment for everyone.
So it's a team effort. We need all hands on deck. But where does that leave us? I mean, it sounds like there are a lot of potential solutions, but no clear path forward.
That's the challenge, isn't it? There are no easy answers. Each approach has its own set of pros and cons. The important thing is that you, as a listener, are aware of these complexities, that you understand the potential solutions and the trade-offs involved. That knowledge empowers you to engage in informed discussions and advocate for the policies that you believe in.
Okay, I like that. Knowledge is power. So we've laid out the problem, we've heard from the experts, and we've explored a whole range of potential solutions. But I keep coming back to that looming debt-to-GDP ratio of 166% in 2054. Like, paint a picture for me.
Yeah.
What might life be like if we don't get this under control? What's the worst-case scenario?
Well, imagine a future where a huge chunk of the federal budget is just going towards paying interest on the debt,
Okay.
which leaves less money for vital services like education, healthcare, infrastructure.
Right. Yeah.
Those programs could face cuts, leading to longer wait times, fewer resources, potentially lower quality of care.
So our quality of life could decline.
It's a possibility. And then there's the impact on your personal finances. As the government struggles to manage its debt, it might have to raise taxes. So you could end up paying more in taxes while also seeing fewer benefits from government programs.
So we'd be working harder, paying more, but getting less in return. Not exactly a recipe for a happy future.
And don't forget about the impact on your savings. If the national debt keeps growing, it could lead to inflation, which eats away at the value of your savings over time. That nest egg you're building for retirement, it might not be worth as much as you hoped.
This is starting to sound like a financial dystopia. Yeah, but before I spiral into a full-blown panic attack, remind me, there's still hope, right? We're not doomed.
Absolutely not. Remember, this is just one possible scenario. The future is not set in stone. By understanding these risks, by acknowledging the potential challenges, we can make more informed choices today. It all starts with awareness, with having these conversations, with advocating for responsible fiscal policies.
Okay, that's a little reassuring. So what can I do besides, listen to this podcast and feel completely overwhelmed? What are some concrete actions I can take?
There's a lot you can do. You can start by contacting your elected officials and letting them know that you care about this issue. You can support organizations that are working to promote fiscal responsibility. And maybe most importantly, you can educate yourself and others about the national debt, about the complexities, about the potential solutions.
So it's not just about politicians and economists. It's about all of us taking responsibility for our collective financial future. It's about demanding transparency, accountability, smart policies that benefit everyone, not just a select few.
Exactly. Every action, no matter how small, can contribute to positive change.
I like that. Okay, so we've talked about the problem, we've heard from the experts, we've explored a bunch of potential solutions, but there's one thing I'm still curious about. We discuss all these different approaches, but they all come with challenges. If you had to pick one, just one, that you think has the most potential, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one. There are so many factors to consider, but if I had to choose just one, I'd say investing in long-term economic growth.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
By focusing on policies that promote innovation, that support education, that improve our infrastructure, we can create a stronger, more resilient economy.
So it's not just about cutting spending or raising taxes. It's about creating an environment where businesses can thrive, people can find good jobs, and the economy can grow sustainably.
Exactly. A stronger economy generates more tax revenue, which can then be used to pay down the debt and to invest in critical services. It's a win-win.
Okay, I can definitely get behind that. But is there anything we haven't talked about, anything that our listeners should be thinking about that we haven't touched on yet?
One thing we didn't really delve into is the role of technology in all of this.
Oh, interesting.
Things like artificial intelligence, blockchain, cryptocurrencies.
Exactly.
These technologies are rapidly changing the financial landscape. They have the potential to disrupt traditional systems and create new opportunities for managing debt and promoting economic growth.
That's a whole other deep dive waiting to happen. So it's not just about understanding the current situation, it's about anticipating the future.
Exactly. Adapting to these emerging technologies. The world of finance is constantly evolving, and it's crucial to stay informed, to be prepared for the changes ahead.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to chew on today, from the sheer scale of the debt to the potential solutions, and even a peek into the future of finance.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. And you know what? The conversation doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep advocating for a brighter financial future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the U.S. national debt. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic, so stay tuned. Okay, so we're talking trillions of dollars here, a debt bigger than our entire economy and experts warning of, potential disaster. But this isn't a horror movie, right? There's got to be some way out of this mess. What can we actually do about this mountain of debt?
Well, the article we're looking at today does offer some glimmers of hope, some potential paths forward, but, and this is important, there's no magic wand solution here.
Right. No quick fixes.
Every approach, every idea comes with its own set of, complexities and trade-offs.
So what are we talking about here? What are some of the ideas on the table?
Well, one idea that's been floating around for a while is to, either revamp the debt ceiling or just get rid of it altogether.
Get rid of it entirely.
Some experts argue that it just creates unnecessary drama, political showdowns every time we hit that limit.
Yeah, I remember those. It's like watching a really bad reality TV show.
And it doesn't actually solve the problem, right? It just kicks the can down the road.
Right. Right. So getting rid of the debt ceiling, that could help prevent those political standoffs. But what about the debt itself?
Well, that's where the tough choices come in. One option, and nobody really likes this one, is targeted spending cuts.
Yeah, cutting spending, never a crowd pleaser.
It's about finding efficiencies, making sure every dollar is being used wisely, but it also means making some difficult decisions about where to trim the fat.
And who gets less?
Exactly. But spending cuts alone, they're probably not enough. We also need to look at the revenue side of the equation.
So taxes.
Tax reform is a big one. It could involve things like broadening the tax base, closing those loopholes that allow wealthy individuals and corporations to avoid paying their fair share, maybe revisiting some past tax cuts that haven't really delivered on their promises.
Right, right. Tax reform, always a hot topic.
It is, but it's a conversation we need to have. And then there's the role of the Federal Reserve. They have a crucial role to play in all of this.
Yeah, the Fed, they're always in the news. But how do they fit into the whole debt picture?
Well, the article stresses the importance of careful interest rate management.
Okay.
It's a delicate balance. They need to keep inflation under control while also supporting economic growth.
So it's like walking a tightrope. One wrong step.
The whole economy could stumble. Exactly.
All right, so we've got debt ceiling reform, spending cuts, tax reform, careful management by the Fed. Anything else? Any other ideas out there?
Well, there's also the idea of investing in areas that could boost revenue and economic growth in the long term, playing the long game.
Okay, like what? Give me some examples.
Things like renewable energy, infrastructure upgrades, supporting technological innovation, planting seeds today for a stronger economic harvest tomorrow.
So it's not just about cutting back, it's about building up, creating a more robust economy. I like that. But can we really do this alone? I mean, the global economy is so interconnected these days.
You're right. It's not just about what's happening within our borders. Global cooperation is absolutely essential. The article highlights the need to work with other countries to address common challenges, like inflation, geopolitical tensions, supply chain disruptions, creating a more stable economic environment for everybody.
Okay, so it's a team effort. We need all hands on deck. But even with all these ideas, all these potential solutions, I still feel a little overwhelmed.
I get it. It's a lot to process. But remember, knowledge is power.
Right.
By understanding the complexities of the national debt, you're better equipped to engage in these conversations, to advocate for responsible policies, to make informed choices in your own life.
Okay, that makes sense. Feeling informed is definitely better than feeling helpless. But I got to ask, we talked about all these potential solutions, but they all seem to come with their own set of challenges. If you had to pick one, just one, that you think has the most potential, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It's like asking me to pick my favorite child. But if I had to choose, I'd say investing in long-term economic growth has the most potential.
Really? Why is that?
Because by focusing on policies that promote innovation, that support education, that improve our infrastructure, we're not just addressing the debt, we're creating a stronger, more resilient economy. An economy that can weather future storms.
Okay, so it's about creating a system that's more sustainable in the long run.
Exactly. It's a win-win. A stronger economy generates more tax revenue, which can then be used to pay down the debt and invest in critical services. It's about building a future where everybody has the opportunity to succeed.
I like that. That gives me some hope. But before we wrap up, is there anything we haven't really touched on that our listeners should be thinking about? Anything we've missed?
One area we haven't really explored is the role of technology in all of this.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
Well, we're living in an era of rapid technological advancement, right? Things like artificial intelligence, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, all these emerging technologies, they have the potential to disrupt traditional systems. And that includes the financial system.
Right, right.
So we need to be thinking about how these technologies can be harnessed to manage debt, to promote economic growth, to create a more equitable and sustainable financial future.
So it's not just about understanding the current situation, it's about anticipating the future.
Precisely. The world of finance is constantly evolving, and it's up to all of us to stay informed and adapt to these changes.
That's a great point. And you know what? For anyone who wants to delve deeper into this topic, we'll have a link to the full NYCPE Insights article in our show notes. It's definitely worth checking out. But before we go, any final thoughts for our listeners? Anything you want to leave them with?
Just this. The national debt is a complex issue, but it's not insurmountable. By understanding the challenges, exploring the potential solutions, and engaging in informed discussions, we can work together to create a more stable and prosperous future.
Well said. And remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep advocating for a brighter financial future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, folks, that's it for this deep dive into the U.S. national debt. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic, so stay tuned. Wow, we've really covered a lot of ground today. I mean, starting with that mind-boggling $35.7 trillion figure, we've explored how the national debt impacts pretty much everything, like, from the cost of buying a house to the funding for essential services, even the value of our hard-earned savings. It's not something we can just sweep under the rug.
Definitely not. But I think the key takeaway here is that knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
The more we understand about the national debt, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions, to advocate for responsible policies,
Right.
to, take control of our own financial futures.
I like that. Feeling informed is definitely better than feeling helpless. And you know what? Speaking of feeling informed, for anyone who wants to, really dive deep into this issue, we've got a link to that full NYCPE Insights article in our show notes. It's a great resource.
Absolutely. And, I encourage everyone to keep the conversation going. Talk to your friends, your family, your colleagues, anyone who will listen. The more we talk about this, the more we raise awareness, the better chance we have of finding solutions that work for everyone.
Absolutely. It's not about, pointing fingers or assigning blame. It's about, working together to find a path forward, to build a better future. So before we wrap up, there's one thing I'm still curious about. We talked about a lot of potential solutions today, but, they all come with their own set of challenges. If you had to pick one, just one, that you think has the most potential, what would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. But, if I had to choose, I'd say investing in long-term economic growth.
Oh, interesting. Why do you think that's the most promising approach?
Well, because by focusing on policies that promote innovation, that support education, that improve our infrastructure, we're not just addressing the debt, we're creating a stronger, more resilient economy, one that can weather future storms.
So it's about creating a system that's more sustainable in the long run.
Exactly. It's a win-win. A stronger economy generates more tax revenue, which can then be used to pay down the debt, invest in those critical services. It's about building a future where everyone has the opportunity to succeed.
I like that. That's a vision I can get behind. Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today, from the scale of the debt to, the potential solutions, and even a glimpse into the future of finance.
Yeah.
It's been a journey.
It has.
It has. And remember, folks, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep advocating for a brighter financial future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, that's it for this deep dive into the U.S. national debt. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic, so stay tuned.